Growth and development. Growth and development concerns have a significant impact on how someone structures their life, which is why everyone needs to be aware of the major development difficulties the globe is currently facing, such as ecological disaster and global poverty. Development is assessed in terms of the gross national product (GNP) and gross domestic product (GDP), which means the growth is measured according to how much a country is able to produce, consume, and earn. GNP includes earning from foreign investments, while GDP estimates the wealth produced from local investments. The higher the GDP and GNP, the greater the economic activity. However, the quest for constant growth is problematic for some reasons. The desire of constant growth drains our natural resources. The more products or services are consumed, the more resources vital to human survival are used up. The decline and eventual end of the world's petroleum supply is also imminent. Scientists estimate that we have reached or will soon reach peak oil. Peak oil refers to a state in which all of the easily accessible oil has been consumed, and the only available petroleum supply come from resources that are very difficult to access. People must begin reflecting the cause of these destructions and depletions. So, what is causing the severe shortage of water that will soon reach crisis proportion in the foreseeable future? One thing, it is global warming. Because Earth is getting warmer, the wind patterns in the sea are changing directions such as that rain is not reaching its usual destination. The human carbon footprint is very heavy on Earth. In the end, high levels of production and consumption are the major seasons of mankind's dependence on oil and its depletion. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I will discussing women and the dominant economic system. Growth and development are destructive to the world, threatening the human existence and well-being. Environmental destruction exposes most of the people in the world through flooding, food and water shortage, and diseases, disproportionately affecting women due to their socialized gender roles. Women are disproportionately affected by the negative health effect of global warming, industrialization, and urbanization due to the pursuit of growth. Women participating in cheap labor have to take on the additional burden in child rearing. Women who work in factories are also prone in risky jobs in exchange of lower pay than men. Economic development is threatening humanity, well-being, and survival, but no opportunities are available to the examined. Western economies were developed through colonization of non-European people and land, with the use of slave labor, land acquisition, extraction of resources, and imposition of products that destroy local economies. Developed nations exploit the resources of their colonies to develop their industries and support their standard of living, even if the former colonies are disadvantaged. This system is supported by national government who control how nations use land, resources, and labors. Western development is based on conquest and exploitation. The woman has been disproportionately affected by this violence. They are traditionally paid lower salary than men and expected to produce and raise future manpower for industries, often taking on the double burden of child rearing and income generation. Because economic development demands that their husband be paid insufficient wage.
Women who choose to participate in the dominant system are made to accept values from the perspective of the dominant system. These values are supposed to result in a better life. Although these same values compel women to decide between success in life, it has been the situation because dominant system which remains a challenge is mainly defined by Western male values that do not hold high regard for alternative values, while being based on consumption, income growth, and the push for more wealth. It's never questioned. while being found on relationships, community, and fulfillment is set aside. An individual is expected to earn a living, and almost everyone will end up working in institutions that operate on profit and growth. One has to be involved in some form of livelihood, where the accumulation of personal wealth is a primary goal. Continuous growth and improvement are a matter of well-being, and one's worth is based on what one is able to consume and own. These values have implications for the way a person lives his or her life. An individual is obliged to acquire a certain level of income to feel his or her value and worth in the community, and to keep with accumulation growth and consumption at levels that can support his or her community. What kind of economic activities does one have to engage to afford overpriced coffees, dinners in the latest artisanal restaurants, and expensive gadgets? What does a person have to do to afford designer clothes and bags, and be able to travel to exotic locations? One has to participate in economic activities that allows for considerable income generation. For instance, he or she may need to become a successful entrepreneur to afford these expenses. If you are to become a successful entrepreneur, you must be driven to find new ways to increase production and sales, to source the cheapest supplies to ensure market visibility, and to constantly keep an eye for the next big thing to sell. You must be able to keep inputs low and sell products high. In a very competitive market, you may be forced to source from exploited users who pay workers or suppliers amounts that cannot even provide the latter access to decent health. These observations may be thought of as sexist and even detrimental to women because these beliefs tend to place women in a position of subordination in dominant economic systems.
Agriculture and the values of development. Men control the majority of the surplus and profits generated by farms of all sizes, which contributes to the fact that agriculture is dominated by men. Men also predominantly control how farmers are portrayed in media. In the developing world, women are taking over farms yet often lack the resources they require to succeed. Women are severely frequently overloaded by having to perform labor that males would normally conduct. Men still have control over the food supply and profit from women's work in the meanwhile. The development of agriculture has been dominated by few large corporations that value profit over ecology. These corporations produce a variety of food from freshly packed meat and canned goods to fast foods and snacks. In order to mass produce, they need farmers who will grow large amount of chicken, pigs, and cows in pens. These livestock come from a particular genetic stock and are kept alive with feeds filled with vitamins and antibiotics. The wheat, rice, and corn they produce are all developed from one kind of stock that can only survive or to be made fruitful if supplied with artificial fertilizers and pesticides. Big companies plant in large farms where the crops will be grown by a ton. If one owns a medium-sized or small farm, most of the seeds available for commercial planting are also designed for mass production. So why is this advantageous for big companies? Big companies benefit from factory farming by getting a supply of corn in large volumes, providing a cheap supply of corn, and earning more money by producing and selling inputs required by the seeds. They also have a monopoly of inputs and can dictate the buying price of the farmers. So what is the problem with this form of production? The most important details are that this system pollutes water systems, destroys soils, and promotes monoculture, leading to the extinction of many species of plant life. Small farmers do not earn enough from this system due to expensive inputs from multinational corporations and high interest. How women feed the world. Women are known keepers of biodiversity throughout the world. In small farms in Africa and many parts of Asia, women cultivate small backyard farms, thus preserving hundreds of species. The preservation of plant species is directly tied to how the locals utilize their understanding of which species are suited to a given environment without resorting to methods. Food produced through women's ways of knowing that is rotted in traditional method is healthier because the food is not processed, hence offering a variety of natural resources of vitamins and minerals. It is estimated that the women produce approximately 60 to 80% of food in the world, and they represent 20% of the agricultural labor force in the region. Furthermore, they produce, process, and prepare majority of available foods and are thus key with respect to food security in their families and communities. Multinational companies are aggressively pushing for monoculture in the quest for wealth accumulation. This aggressive push is founded on patriarchal values. Bandana Shiba, an eco-feminist and environmental activist, makes this observation. Agriculture based on diversity, decentralization, and improving small farms productivity in nature-friendly agriculture. It is based on the renewal of the earth's fertility and the generation of biodiversity and species richness. Monoculture and monopolies symbolize patriarchal agriculture, which is inconsistent with women diverse, non-violent ways of knowing nature and providing food security. Women are essential to human growth, and their way of being productive has less impact on the environment. Despite this, they are not supported as producers and feeders of the world. Government and private investments are focused on commercial farming, and the world market is primarily focused on sustaining the activities of commercial producers. This can lead to the demise of the practices of the women who care for the earth and who favor alternative practices. Women, gardeners, and horticulturalists that keep the world fed. Women need to become leaders in the food justice movement to understand and build a food system that supports women farmers instead of profiting from their exploitation.
Pro-economic development may be detrimental to everyone, but it has more negative impact on women. According to Shiva, an economic system that is geared toward growth and accumulation is anti-women and anti-environment. She has a point. The way humans realize this accumulation is through a system of growth that understands development as a transformation of nature through manpower and technological intervention. From the perspective of Western development, raw nature is wasted resource that ought to be transformed into a tradable commodity or things that can be then transformed into instruments of wealth accumulation in the market. Thus, a forest is underdeveloped unless it can be harvested for wood and converted into agricultural land for cash crop production or into real estate. Bodies of water are a waste unless they can be utilized for irrigation, hydroelectric power, or bottled water. However, the more transformation goes into production, the more expensive a commodity can be sold and the more money can be made from it. In sum, the economic systems intervene and harvest nature so that it can be turned into commodities using energy-hungry multi-step processes. This cycle of intervention, transformation, and processing for accumulation and consumption may be called destructive development. Women in traditional communities were denied access to their most fundamental source of life and livelihood. Using intrusive and destructive means, forests were cleared, wildlife was depleted, soil was made barren, and water was polluted and drained. Thus, nature could not renew itself according to its natural cycles. Women had to work harder to obtain water from displaced waterways, plant crops in less productive soil, and lose access to fish and other accessible sources of protein because of their natural supplies have been removed or depleted as a result of the modernization of economy. There is a genuine need to re-examine what most understand as development. This task is particularly important for women to realize because it is now imperative to recover the feminine principle as the basis for development, which conserves and is practically ecological. Women in traditional societies still understand how to provide for a living since they do not have fallen into the destructive traps of development. Their voice needs to be cultivated and allowed to influence and transform the dominant model. Clearly, women need to participate in development that is more than just an expansion of the existing economic system. Development should not simply mean the westernization of the world. Women of different cultures must come together and demand that their voices be heard. It is important for both men and women, westernized or not, that women be given the chance to participate in reimagining a possible economic system that defines prosperity and well-being. Since women have valuable knowledge about ecological preservation, solidarity building, and shared prosperity, they can enlighten the dominant system about how to build a more sustainable and humane economic order amidst threats of global warming and poverty. This chapter is written not only to expose the present flaws of patriarchal values on liberal capitalism, but also to initiate critical thinking about development and to reflect on the vital role of women, especially poor peasant women, on humanization. Because development is still based on aggressive masculine values, women themselves must act together in enriching or correcting this narrow view of development. Thus, there is a need to articulate a potential framework for the participation and engagement of women as agents of development. Many non-governmental and multilateral agencies, like the UN and the World Bank, understand that women empowerment and capacity building are key to realizing self-development and achieving the well-being of women. However, these goals are hampered by social and economic systems. Hence, many efforts of these agencies to transform these obstructive systems are being hindered by some barriers. The Women, Culture, and Development, or WCD, approach to development is a new model of empowering women. This approach advances women liberation by realizing the capacity of women to become agents of change. The most important purpose of WCD is to support women's initiative that liberate themselves without imposing ideas. In India, WCD partners have formed cooperatives for women vendors to increase the latter's economic advantage and to protect them against exploitative men. Therefore, women's development must be rooted in the transformation of the totality of societal or cultural and economic realities that shape and limit a woman's agency. They should be agents of their own development according to their own understanding of human growth. Women today are said to have acquired economic power. They are now able to shape policies in corporations as executives and as consumers who have buying power. This progress means that women can be influential in determining what gets manufactured, how employees are treated, and what safety standards should be adopted.